Welcome to another sound sculpting session. This time I'm going to look at something a little bit different, which is a kind of percussive stab, which has some pitched element, but isn't a traditionally chromatic pitched sound either, that would lend itself well to certain vibes. And percussion and drums isn't necessarily something you'd immediately think of when you think of the Nymphes, but actually you can get some really interesting little percussive sounds out of it. It's never going to have the cut through and thump of a dedicated drum machine, but for the more interesting sort of unique percussive sounds, especially ones that are slightly tuned, you can come out with some really nice evolving stuff, and because of all the expressive possibilities you can get some really interesting evolving percussion patterns with some of the sounds you can get out of it. So this is the kind of sound I'm going for this one. So higher up, you start to hear the harmonics a bit more, and then low down it's a lot more thumping, and you don't get so much of that. So I'm going to start off, as always, with my default patch. You know the drill by now if you watch my other videos. Load, shift, bank 7, sound 7, load. Horrible saw. So I'm actually going to start with the envelopes this time. First of all, I'm going to go into menu, voice mode, menu off, and unison. It's going to be unison sound. With a little bit of detune, but not much, because it could easily, because it's got quite a bit of bass end, if you do too much it's going to sound really flabby and messy. But otherwise I'm going to start with the envelopes, because with a percussive sound that's kind of the most important bit really, and we can look at the rest of it after that. So as you might expect, you want a fast attack. Let's just do it, and for the filter envelope, just a nudge above 0. I'm actually going to go into the amp envelope. So attack, right down. We may want to add 1 or 2 depending on how the attack comes in, to make it less clicky if it has a bit of a click, but we'll see. And quite a long decay, because this isn't a tiny little percussive sound, it's more of a big booming one. Sustain down to 0 for a percussive sound. You want it to not be any different if you hold it down, just a quick trigger. And the release. For some reason you need to set the release for the sustain to work like. Yeah, so if I hold it now, it still fades off. And I'm going to go into the filter envelope, similar settings really, but just a shorter decay for this. We'll start off with a shorter decay, sustain down to 0 again, as you always want with if you're going for percussion, drum type sounds, and a long release. Already sounds quite cool, but not very percussive, understandably. So now we've got the rough shape of the sound with the envelopes, we can go into the oscillator section and the filter section, and we want a sawtooth wave, we want the level up pretty high. I'm going to add a bit of velocity mod to this, because, you know, once you get into percussive sounds, that's a lot more important, so you can really get that accent on some notes and create that dynamic flow and rhythm. Sub oscillator down to 0, quite a bit of noise, so for that slightly snare like sound. In terms of the shift settings for oscillator, no glide, no, oh yeah, detune, we're just having a tiny bit, aren't we? A little tiny bit. Not going to touch chord. LFO, yeah, not going to have LFO for now. And actually we're going to have quite a bit of pitch modulation on the envelope. That's commonly a thing you have in the percussive sounds. Oh, except I haven't pressed shift, so there's a lot of drum-like things that you strike, their pitch will change rapidly as the membranes or whatever oscillate and contract, and you know, you can really look into all the acoustic physics of that. It's an interesting topic. My understanding of it is certainly that's a useful tool in the creation of percussive sounds. Filter wise, we're going to mostly control the filter with the envelope. So let's put the low pass right down, have a bit of high pass. We'll maybe tweak that later to just really take off the very lowest end to make it less flabby. But we want to keep some, because this could almost be a bass and percussion in one in some circumstances. A hint of resonance, but not much. Just to create a bit of bite and harmonic shaping. Pitch envelope we're going to use a fair bit of. So it already sounds like a kind of strange drum of some sort. Already getting a bit of a percussive drum feel, like it's some strange big boomy drum. And no filter tracking on this for now, and filter LFO a touch. What happens if we put the filter tracking up? I'm going to have it low for now, but I might play with that. LFOs, usual business, is what I'm going to look at next. Let's have a saw at a fast rate. I'm going to try and do a bit of high speed audio rate modulation with the LFO to give it a bit of growl, see what that does. I'm going to make it fade out and have no delay. Yeah, I think that's there with that. Let's go into menu 2, shift menu to edit the other parameters for LFO1 before we move on. And we want that high rate if we want. and key synced. I'm pretty sure we're going to want that key synced. Okay. Quite dull at the moment in terms of tone. A lot of filter going on. Low pass. I think that'll change when we do some more modulation. Menu 2 we're already in. LFO 2. Let's go for a saw again. So we're looking at modulations that come in fast and then drop off like a saw shape, sawtooth shape. Rate wise, quite quick. Let's just see with this, and I'm actually going to make this into an envelope with the old trick of rate down, delay down to 0 and fade up to max. And before I go on, I'm actually going to make sure that it's key synced. Actually, I'll leave that. So it sounds percussive, it just sounds a bit faint and distant and subdued at the moment. But that will hopefully change once we put in the LFO to modulations. Let's get a bit of pitch and wave modulation going on. And LFO 2 maybe a little bit of pitch envelope modulation, bumping that up and dropping it off. So everything here will go up and then get and fade off with the envelope size that we've chosen. And okay, so I think let's make it bump up the oscillator volume a bit and the sub-oscillator volume a little bit as well. This is just creating a more intense amp envelope essentially. You're kind of reinforcing the amp envelope, the standard amp envelope and what that's up to. Which just helps make the percussion a bit more punchy in my experience. Resonance, bit of a resonance boost. Low pass filter. Let's make it open that up a bit as well. So that's already a lot more punchy. Sounds quite cool. And I think we could affect the envelope a bit with it as well, the attack maybe. Let's see. Both. Let's play with it. I think that's pretty much there with those modulations, I would say. Yeah. Yeah, you've got from that starting point of this kind of thing, you can make lots of different percussive sounds. You've got quite a good bass layer there for a hybrid between a tom and some of the more tuned percussion instruments. With a bit of snarey white noise in there, so you know you can take away the noise, or you can make the pitch envelope faster or stronger, and you suddenly get a whole range of different instruments out of it. So let's look at reverb. Number 3. Might as well get a good bit of reverb on this. Quite a bit of decay. Let's make it all booming. Does some nice things. Maybe turn the mix down a bit. And actually, what we can do is go into 2, and I'm going to do my trick of sending MIDI CCs. I'm going to make it affect the reverb size quite a bit, and sort of medium settings on reverb decay and reverb filter, and down a bit on the reverb mix. So look in the manual for the MIDI CCs that let you do that. I'm going to do it from LFO2, so I'm just going to quickly change those settings. Now the reverb has its own envelope as well. If you want a bit less, obviously bump the mix down. Drop the mix down. Oh, I'm in LFO2. Oh dear. So I probably have made it affect the envelopes, which I don't want to do, so I'm going to set all those down to 0. I just wanted the amp envelope being affected. Let's go back into reverb and bump the mix. So as you go into the higher registers, it's starting to sound quite metallic, almost like a chime, like hitting. I don't know. I'm not that up on different kinds of percussion names, but I like it though. But now if you, for example, you turn the noise right down. You still get a bit of noise because it's pushed up by the modulation, but you get, yeah, an interesting different kind of metallic percussion. So now I put the noise back up, got that back in. And you definitely want a bit of velocity modulation, I think. Let's go into number 5. Number 5, yeah. And let's bump up the volume of the different oscillator settings. One thing I haven't done is the extra LFO settings, but I'll do that in a minute. I think let's open up the filter and a bit more resonance. A lot of these things I use quite often the same sorts of things for things like velocity. make it. So now that really brings it to life. Sounds quite war, you know, like drums of war. But a futuristic war underground or something, maybe, I don't know. Lots you can do with that, and maybe some mod wheel number 4. Let's just open up the filter a bit with the mod wheel. Maybe not that much. Yeah, I think that's basically a good place to start with other percussive journeys. So enjoy yourself with that. I'm going to look at some more detailed percussive patches another time, but hopefully that's a good starting point to explore the percussive possibilities of the Nymphes.